Muy buenas noches a todos nuestros amigos de Pánico en la Sala, un programa más con todos vosotros y ya vamos por el 420. Pues nada, en este verano que estamos haciendo programas especiales y tenemos otra entrevista, en este caso del año pasado también en el Festival de Sitges, y hablamos con Barbara Crampton, ya que la película Re-Animator cumplía 40 años, porque es una película de 1985, película dirigida por Stuart Gordon, y hicieron una sesión especial de esta película, Re-Animator, y pudimos entrevistar a Barbara Crampton, una mujer además de que es preciosa, muy guapa, además una persona muy agradable y que nos respondió a todas nuestras preguntas. Eso sí, como podréis ver, esta entrevista está subtitulada, ya que se hizo en inglés, y así podréis leer todo lo que nos dijo, y muy interesante, ya que aparte de hablar de Re-Animator, hablamos un poco también de toda su carrera, ¿no? Lo dicho, una persona majísima, con la que luego nos pudimos hacer unas cuantas foticos, y yo sobre todo, que llevaba la camiseta Re-Animator, pues ahí estuve con Barbara Crampton, pues haciendo pues esa entrevista que hicimos junto a Santi Serrano, como es lógico, ya que estamos los dos allí siempre, pues eso, juntitos, para hacer muchas entrevistas, las que más podamos. Y antes de entrar con la entrevista, pues vamos, como siempre, con redes sociales. Y como siempre, redes sociales, pues es Facebook, que es Pánico en la Sala, X o antiguo Twitter, @Pánico en la Sala, Instagram Pánico en la Sala, iVoox Pánico en la Sala, Set de Radio Barcelona. Y también podéis entrar en la página de Set de Radio y siempre encontráis los últimos programas. Y como siempre, nuestro colaborador especial, que es el 79. Ya sabéis, el 79, vuestra tienda de DVDs y Blu-ray, el 79, que está en la calle Taller 79 de Barcelona, y tenéis, pues eso, una página que es el 79.com, repito, el 79.com, donde si no podéis estar ahí en la tienda, en la que disfrutaríais mucho, porque hay cientos, miles de películas, o sea, podéis pasaros días ahí intentando investigar qué es lo que podéis encontrar, pero tenéis una página para si estáis en otras partes o otros puntos de España y no podéis pasar por Barcelona, o en ese momento pues podéis entrar en cualquier momento y coger las películas que queráis, ciencia ficción, terror, fantástico, lo que queráis. El 79, vuestra tienda de DVDs y Blu-rays.
Of Re-Animator.
First day of filming, I think it was our first day. I think it was in the character of Dan Kane's apartment when we were looking for Rufus because he had gone missing. That was our very first day. But also, even before we started filming, we rehearsed for 3 weeks. And if you know anything about movies, you know you don't rehearse. You usually show up on the set and you start working and you work on the scene. But for whatever reason, because Stuart was from the theater, he wanted to rehearse the movie, which I think is one of the reasons that the movie is as good as it is that we had our characters really dialed in with one another. And the material was really organized and dialed in, and our relationship and our chemistry with one another we had been working on for a long time, even before we started filming, so it made it feel more real.
All right, perfect.
Yo, pues que si le ofrecieran una secuela de Re-Animator, que si la aceptaría y a quién le gustaría que fuese el director.
He's asking that if you ever got to do a sequel to Re-Animator, would you do it, and who would you like to be the director?
So amazing that you asked that question, because originally I was supposed to be the bride in Bride of Re-Animator, in the second one. Stuart Gordon was supposed to direct it, and he had written a script with Dennis Paoli. His agent at the time said, "Oh no, that is beneath you to do a sequel. Don't do a sequel," which was the worst advice that you could give to somebody, because, well, then Brian Usna had made so much money off the first one, because that was his movie, that he said, well, we have to make a second one. And then he said, I'll just film your script. And Stuart said, no, you can't film my script, that's my script, you have to write your own. So Brian wrote his own script, and for whatever reason, then didn't include me, which is fine. I'm sad that he didn't. But to this day, I'm sad. But it was bad advice at the time. Like, I don't think that Stuart's agent knew what he was saying when he told him that. So yes, I would love to be in a sequel to Re-Animator, and I do think we've been talking about it. You know, I don't know if Brian is going to allow us to do it, but if we were to make a sequel of Re-Animator, I think it should be like the Jamie Lee Curtis Halloween, where they picked up after the first movie what happened all those years later. She had PTSD, remember, in the movie?
Yes.
I think David Gordon Green directed that. That movie really worked. It was like, forget all the other sequels, start over what happens. To me, that's what we should do. But I don't know if that will ever happen. I don't know. We'll see. You know, look, Re-Animator is also public domain. It's H.P. Lovecraft, so you could make any story about Re-Animator and do something else. And there are people that are more, and they have made other Re-Animators. I mean, they're not as successful, but it's always there. It's always looming that we could do another one. Will we get to? I don't know. But yes, my answer to you is I would love to do it.
La comèdia i el terror són dos gèneres aparentment oposats, però sovint combinen bé, com passa a Re-Animator. Per què creu que passa?
So comedy and horror are two genres that seem very separate, very like put aside, but that surprisingly work together really well, which happens as well in Re-Animator. Why do you think that the two genres mix up so well together?
I actually think they don't mix up so well together, because I think that most people aren't very good at doing it. Re-Animator is a great comedy horror because I think the stability and the foundation has to be there first of the horror with the comedy layer on top. And a lot of filmmakers do the comedy first and then they put horror elements in. I don't think that works. If you go back and you think about the greatest horror comedies, the ones that really work have the horror at the foundation and at the base first, and then the layer of the comedy is on top. It's too hard to do it. And distributors and salespeople and studios shy away from that because there's not enough people who know how to do it very well. But for whatever reason, Stuart knew what he was doing. You know, he shocked us, and it was horrible what happened, and the horror is so extreme that it's almost like the comedy is a release. It's like a release of the horror that you're watching. And it's just really hard for people to marry those two together. There's another horror comedy that I really love called Tucker and Dale versus Evil. And I think that also really works very well because it's very funny. But there's such horrible, horrible things that happen. And you have to put the accent and the foundation on the scary and the horror things that happen first. And so I just think it's really difficult to get creatively correct.
How would you describe Stuart Gordon from an artistic point of view?
He's an uncompromising artist, Stuart Gordon. He always wanted to do things his way. You would even say to him, "Oh, I'd like to try this, or I'd like to do this," but he had in his mind how you should play the character. And I used to say to him, "If you could play every character in this movie story, you would." And he's like, "No, it's your character, it's your character." But he was very proactive in sort of managing us and how he wanted us to play all of our parts. Very specific and very detail oriented. I would say that about
opina de la nueva ola de directores con los que ha trabajado.
So what's your opinion about the new wave of directors that you've been recently working with?
Great. I mean, I've mostly worked in independent cinema. I've done a few studio movies and I've done some television, but most of the filmmakers I work with are their own voices. They're very unique. It's independent cinema, so it's really from each individual person and who they are. Jackson Stewart for Beyond the Gates was, very unique in his style and what he wanted to do. And I did a movie with Spider One, who's Rob Zombie's brother, recently called Little Bites. Very intuitive filmmaker from his own sensibilities. And I like working with people that have single-minded visions like that. And there's another movie playing at Sitges called Every Heavy Thing. He's the director and also a very unique filmmaker. So I love working with people that they want to do their own thing and they're very unique.
Vull preguntar per una escena de Re-Animator, l'escena del dipòsit de cadàvers. És una escena que s'ha comentat molt i m'agradaria que la valorés amb la perspectiva actual d'auge del feminisme i l'expressió femenina en el gènere.
So he's really asking about a specific scene in Re-Animator, which is the body deposit scene.
The body deposit?
Yeah, so I reckon it's la morgue,
yeah.
The morgue scene.
Yeah.
And he wants to know if there's any elements of, like, how do you see it from now, like, looking back, and also if you see any, like, feminist specific elements from that scene.
I mean, look, I was very vulnerable in that movie, right? I think my character was very strong and very smart, and that's why I like Meg, but also she had some horrific things to go through. None of it scared me, by the way. I wasn't frightened by the material or what it was doing. It was also very funny, and sort of a visual pun on, the head. Just sort of was a crazy scene. I think it's something that sticks with people. It was very hard to film when we did it, but it's very memorable and people talk to me about it all the time, so I'm very proud of it. Yeah.
Talking about the scenes you're proud of, what is the scene you're most proud of?
Of Re-Animator?
Yes.
The scene that I'm most proud of. I have specific scenes that I like more than others. I think I really love the scenes where Father comes in and takes me in that's like my last real moment as Meg, hoping for the future. So that's probably my favorite scene for me as an actor.
Pues pasamos de la escena que más orgullosa está a qué película de su carrera que más orgullosa está.
So we go from the scene that made you the proudest to which film actually made you the proudest?
Well, that's an interesting question. There's probably two. I loved my role and the movie From Beyond. It's so long ago, but I feel like I had a really great part. There's more great parts for men still in the film industry than there are for women, but that part was, very strong because I played a doctor and a psychiatrist, and then I had to sort of, save the day. Then it became sort of a femme fatale, sort of reorganizing my sexuality, and then I go crazy at the end of the movie. So I got there were so many things to do, but there's also another more recent movie that's not as well known called Jacob's Wife. I think that played here a couple of years ago. Jacob's Wife. It was during the pandemic, and I wasn't able to come over for that. But that's probably my favorite movie that I've ever done, even though it's a small film. I really love that part and what it says about a long-term marriage. And I always wanted to play a classic character, so I got to play a vampire in that film. So I'd say that's probably my favorite.
Sí, pregunta per una fotografia molt popular d'internet, aquesta. què recorda d'aquest moment, d'aquesta fotografia, que explica una mica?
So he wants to bring up this really famous picture that goes around the internet, and he wants to know like more context about the image, like who took the picture, what was going on.
I don't remember, really. I think we were just goofing around. You know, it has become a famous photo. Look, we didn't know the movie was going to be as long remembered as it is when we were doing the movie. And I think we should have taken more pictures. Because we only really have a few. And that picture is just sort of very casual. We're on the set, we're having fun, and really enjoying each other and goofing around. It was that moment. I'm sure we had a set photographer taking a few pictures, but I don't remember who that person was, unfortunately.
And at what point you feel Re-Animator was something special in pop culture?
Well, when the movie first came out, I remember talking to my agent and saying, oh, the movie got great reviews by Pauline Kael and by Roger Ebert. Oh, I've arrived. This is going to be great. This is going to do great things for my career. And my agent said, Barbara, it's a low-budget horror movie. It's nothing. And wow, that really deflated me. The movie has grown in its cult status over the years. So when did I finally realize that it was as popular? Maybe like 20 years ago. You know, it took, I'd say 20 years for people to go, wow, that's a really fantastic movie. And now even 40 years later, people say, wow, this is a cult classic. So it's taken many, many, many years for people to realize its value and how strong debut it was for
Y pues, ¿qué opinas sobre ser un referente y un icono del cine terror moderno?
What do you think of yourself as being like this icon of horror movie as a model?
I don't think of myself like that, but thank you for saying it. I love working in movies. I love playing characters. It's something I wanted to do when I was very little. And I still think it's as hard today to make movies, even if I'm a so-called icon, than it was years ago. I still struggle to make all of the movies that I've made, and even the filmmakers that I've worked with, they struggle to get movies off the ground. It's the life of an artist. It's still a constant struggle. You just have to keep doing it and keep working as hard as you can to make your art. So I think just being a cultural icon is just having staying power and just not stopping. You know, not thinking when times get tough or it's hard to make something. It's easy to give up, but you just can't give up. You just have to keep going. And I've often said I want to be the Betty White of horror. You know, Betty White, this old actress from America. I'd like to keep playing as many roles as possible and keep going with my legacy and playing grandmother parts. So I hope I get to stay as long as possible.
Si Re-Animator fos rodada avui amb les nostres sensibilitats, què creu que guanyaria i quan
If Re-Animator was to be shot again now with all the modern technologies, what do you think would improve from the movie and what do you think would be worse in the movie?
Well, I just hope they wouldn't use any CGI for anything. It was all practical effects. And there was a time, maybe 10 years ago, when CGI was very popular and they were using techniques in films. And then after a while, the horror fans are very, tried and true and very dedicated people. They don't like that very much. So now there's a sensibility to go back to practical effects. Nobody likes AI, so we don't want any of that. We just want real stuff. We don't want actresses who are fake AI characters. We want real people. So I'm very proud of the fact that as part of the movie, that is all practical effects. So what could be improved on it?
Marks the 40th anniversary of the movie. You were in a lot of places across the world celebrating the event, and now you're in Sitges. How do you feel right now?
Oh, well, this is my favorite festival. Don't tell the other festivals, but this is my favorite one. I love the location. 58?
Yeah, this
Yes.
is a
That's
58.
insane.
Yes.
Yeah, I always say when people in America, they say, where are you going? I'm going to Sitges. And they say, what is Sitges? I say, it's like the Cannes Film Festival for horror films. You know, it's very sophisticated, it's very posh, it's very elegant there. And, you know, you guys treat us with such respect. And this is my favorite place to come. And I always honor to be asked back. Yeah.
Date,
Yeah, so it's one question each last, and,
Okay.
and we're over.
Pues sigo omitiendo la secuela de Re-Animator en la que no participó, si hay alguna peli que le ofrecieran y que se arrepintiera de rechazarla.
So aside from the sequel to Re-Animator that at the end it didn't end up
We'll make
happening,
it soon.
we will make
Yeah.
it. I think
Yeah.
he wants it as well. He's gonna fight for it. Is there any movie that you've rejected as well that you regret not being able to participate in?
Rejected that I've gotten the part for that I rejected with Sala. No, I'm really careful about my legacy now, and a lot of things I turned down. There's a couple of movies that got away. I was up for the part in Candyman. I auditioned for Candyman. I didn't get that part. I would have liked to have done that. There's been a couple movies that I've done that I wish that I hadn't. When the movie came out, I was like, oh, it's not so good. Because I work with a lot of young filmmakers still. I'm very careful about the role that I pick, and as I've gotten older, I'm also really careful. So I'd say I turn down more movies than I do. But I don't think there's ever been a movie that I turned down that I said, oh, I wish I did that. No, I don't have one. But maybe I'll come back next year and have a debate.
Bueno, si pogués escriure, dirigir, produir una pel·lícula el seu propi projecte de terror, quin tipus de pel·lícula, quin tipus d'història?
You could write, direct your own horror movie. What kind of story would you tell?
A strong story of relationships. I'm really into the inner workings of people and why they do the things they do. And I think the best films really showcase human nature and explain to us who we are. So I don't have a specific answer for you, but I think something about human nature and understanding. So then I will go back to Jenna so I can say, watch that.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Great
very much.
questions.
Thank you.
you so much.
Can we take a picture?
Yes, please.
Bueno, aquí el programa de hoy ya. Espero que os haya gustado la entrevista que hicimos Santi y un servidor a Barbara Crampton. Es verdad que no es muy larga, son 20 minutitos, ya que ahí sí que había cola de periodistas para hacer la entrevista y solo nos daban 20 minutos. Como la anterior, Víctor Matellano y Enzo Castellari, tuvimos todo el tiempo del mundo. Si hubiésemos hecho 3 horas de programa, pues también se hubiese hecho. Pero con Barbara Crampton tuvimos 20 minutitos. Y bueno, pues espero que os haya gustado. Y como siempre, en la parte técnica, Carlos Ortega y uno que os ha hablado, Mario Herrera. Como siempre os digo, felices pesadillas. Adiós.